Have you ever seen a child's smile fade just because of someone's hatred? That was the kind of day Liam Parker had when he walked into his history class. The sun was bright outside, but inside that classroom, something darker was waiting. Mr. Thompson, a man with silver hair and a cold stare, stood near the board, his voice sharp like a knife. The students whispered as Liam walked in, clutching his notebook. His dark brown skin had always made him a target of quiet jokes, but today it would turn into something worse. Late again, Parker, Mr. Thompson snapped. His eyes scanned Liam from head to toe, and then he said the words that froze the entire class. Maybe if you people cared more about discipline, you'd actually learn something. The word "you people" hit like a slap. Some students looked down, others tried to hide their smirks. Liam's throat tightened, but he said nothing. He took his seat silently, his hands trembling under the desk. Mr. Thompson started his lecture, but every sentence after that felt poisoned. When Liam raised his hand to answer a question about civil rights, Mr. Thompson interrupted him. You probably wouldn't understand this chapter, Liam. It's not about sports or dancing. The class chuckled. Liam's eyes burned, but he refused to cry. His mother had told him that tears were not weakness, they were proof you still cared. At lunch, Liam sat alone. He picked at his sandwich, hearing the echoes of laughter from his classmates. He wondered if his father would ever understand how cruel school could be. David Parker was always busy with meetings and phone calls, always talking about investments and management. Liam didn't know his father owned the very school he was humiliated in. That night, as he sat in his room, he wrote in his journal, "Why does my skin make me wrong before I even speak?" He didn't know that the next day, everything would change, that one small act would reveal the truth about who really had the power. Before the next chapter begins, take a deep breath and think, how many Liams still sit quietly in classrooms, hiding their pain? If you feel this story speaks truth, comment "Black Lives Matter" below and subscribe to Stained Humanity. Have you ever seen a moment so cruel that even silence feels painful? The next morning, Liam walked into class with heavy steps. His heart beat faster than his feet moved. He hoped Mr. Thompson had forgotten yesterday, but deep down, he knew men like him never forget. They just wait for another chance to wound. As the bell rang, the room filled with whispers. Mr. Thompson entered with his usual stiff walk and cold smirk. "Class," he began, "today we'll have a little test to see who's actually learning something." He looked straight at Liam while saying it. The paper landed on Liam's desk with extra force. The teacher leaned closer and whispered, "Let's see if that dark head of yours can handle some real history." Liam froze. The words stabbed deeper than any insult before. Throughout the test, Liam's hands shook. He knew the answers. He had studied more than anyone in that room, but every time he wrote, he felt the teacher's stare burning into his back. After class, Mr. Thompson called him to the front. "Everyone gather around," he said with a fake smile. "Let's see our star student's result." He held Liam's paper up, marked with a red circle. "You failed again," Mr. Thompson sneered. "Seems like studying doesn't change where you come from." The students laughed, not all, but enough to make Liam's eyes sting. He looked down, unable to speak. But just then, Mrs. Wilson, the principal, happened to pass by the open door. She saw the scene. Her smile faded, her eyes narrowing. She didn't interrupt, not yet, but she stood there quietly, watching. When the class ended, Liam walked out slowly, holding his torn pride like shattered glass. He didn't notice Mrs. Wilson following him to the hallway. "Liam," she called softly. He turned, startled. "Is everything okay in Mr. Thompson's class?" she asked. He hesitated, then said, "Yes, ma'am." His voice cracked. She knew he was lying, but she also knew pain makes people silent. That evening, Liam went home early. He sat by the window, staring at the rain. He whispered to himself, "I wish Dad knew what it feels like to be invisible." At that exact moment, David Parker's car pulled into the driveway. He stepped out, tired from work, unaware that his son had been humiliated in a school he paid for. The truth was only a breath away from being exposed, and when it came out, it would shake the walls of that classroom forever. Before you move to the next chapter, think, how many teachers use their power to break, not build? If this story touched your heart, comment, Black Lives Matter, and subscribe to Stained Humanity. Have you ever watched truth hide in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to explode? The next morning, Liam didn't want to go to school. His stomach felt heavy, his heart heavier, but his mother reminded him, running away doesn't end pain, it only feeds it. So he went. When Liam entered the classroom, the laughter was softer, but the looks were the same. Mr. Thompson stood near the board again, acting as if nothing had happened. "Good morning, class," he said sharply. His voice carried the same arrogance, the same poison. Liam took his seat, avoiding his eyes. Halfway through the lesson, the classroom door opened. Mrs. Wilson stood there with her usual calm expression. "Mr. Thompson," she said politely, "I need Liam Parker in my office for a few minutes." The teacher frowned. "He's in the middle of class, Mrs. Wilson," he said. "Yes," she replied, "and this is important." Liam followed her down the long hallway. His heart raced as he wondered what he had done wrong this time. Inside the principal's office, Mrs. Wilson offered him a seat and said gently, "Liam, I saw what happened yesterday." He looked up in surprise. "You did?" She nodded slowly. "I heard the words. I saw the humiliation. That's not how a teacher should treat a student." Liam stayed quiet, unsure what to say. His fingers tightened around his notebook. Mrs. Wilson continued, "I need to inform your guardian." "What's your father's name, Liam?" He hesitated. "David Parker," he said softly. Mrs. Wilson's eyes widened a little. "David Parker," she repeated, her tone shifting. "Is he the owner of this school?" Liam nodded shyly. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Mrs. Wilson leaned back, a spark of realization in her eyes. "Liam," she said kindly, "I promise you this will be handled properly. But you must let your father know what happened." Liam looked down. "He's always busy," he whispered. "He doesn't have time for things like this." Mrs. Wilson smiled softly. "He will make time for you." Trust me, that night Liam sat at the dinner table, quiet as usual. David Parker noticed his son's silence for the first time in weeks. "Everything okay at school?" he asked casually. Liam hesitated, then nodded, but his trembling hands said otherwise. David frowned. He placed his hand on his son's shoulder. "Liam, talk to me." The boy finally looked up, his eyes wet. "Dad, my teacher, he hates me because of my skin." The room fell silent. The man who owned an empire of schools felt his heart break into 1,000 pieces. For the first time, he wasn't just a businessman, he was a father who had failed to protect his child. The next day, David Parker would walk into that classroom, not as an owner, but as a storm no one saw coming. If you believe no child should face hate for the color they were born with, subscribe to Stained Humanity, where every story reminds us that silence only helps the wrong side. Have you ever seen silence become the loudest voice in a room? The next morning, the school buzzed with its usual noise until a black luxury car stopped at the front gate. Students peeked out the windows, whispering. David Parker stepped out, dressed in a sharp gray suit, his expression calm but unreadable. He didn't walk like a businessman that morning. He walked like a father with a purpose. Inside the classroom, Mr. Thompson was preparing to start his lecture when Mrs. Wilson entered, her tone firm. "Mr. Thompson, Mr. David Parker would like a word with you." Now, the teacher's face stiffened. "David Parker. The owner?" he asked nervously. "Yes," she replied. The students exchanged looks, and Liam's heartbeat quickened. In the principal's office, Mr. Thompson tried to keep his composure as David Parker stood across from him. "Good morning, sir," he said, forcing a smile. "To what do I owe this honor?" David didn't smile back. His voice was low and steady. "I'm here because of my son, Liam Parker." The teacher froze. His throat went dry. "You're your son?" "Yes," David said. "My son, the student you humiliated for his skin color, the child you decided to embarrass in front of an entire class." Mr. Thompson stuttered. "Sir, there must be some misunderstanding." David's hand hit the table softly but firmly. "No misunderstanding. You looked at my child and saw color before character. You thought power gave you the right to wound him." The room went silent. Even Mrs. Wilson, standing nearby, didn't move. Mr. Thompson swallowed hard. I didn't mean," David interrupted. "You didn't mean it. You meant every word. And now you'll face the consequence of your prejudice." He turned toward Mrs. Wilson. Effective immediately, I want Mr. Thompson removed from this school. No child should ever learn from a man who teaches hate. She nodded quietly. As David stepped out of the office, Liam was standing near the hallway, watching. Their eyes met. The boy whispered, "You came." David smiled softly. "Always, son, always." Liam ran forward and hugged him tightly. The same hallway that once echoed with laughter now held silence, the kind that comes only when justice finally arrives. That afternoon, the students whispered a different story, one about how a teacher lost his job not to revenge, but to truth. And somewhere inside that small school, a young boy finally walked a little taller, knowing his skin wasn't a burden, it was his strength. Because sometimes, the darkest lessons shine the brightest light. If this story touched your heart, if you believe every child deserves respect no matter their color, subscribe to Stained Humanity, where every story reminds us that hate may speak loud, but truth always speaks louder.